Hello my YouTube viewers, this is Raven. Today I want to start off by telling a story about my childhood. Well, I was raised in a small town in Idaho by a British mother, a very proper and very strict British mother, and everything had to be done by her standards, whether how we spoke, how we ate, how we dressed, what our posture was like. She had very high standards and did her best to make sure that we met her standards. So, as part of that, being raised by a British mother, I picked up her accent to some degree. Now, I didn't pick up her accent completely, but enough that it was noticeable. And when I went to school, people started making fun of me quite a bit because of how I spoke. And that was really difficult for me, because I was doing my best to speak properly, and I was already very self-conscious about how I spoke. Having a British mother that always made sure that I pronounced words clearly and didn't mumble. And the school decided that it would be best if they put me through speech therapy to teach me how to speak with an American accent. So they put me in speech therapy without my mother's knowledge or consent. And every day I had to go in there, and maybe it was every other day, I don't remember exactly, but I remember it was quite frequently. I would go in there with the speech therapist, and she was a very nice woman, and I don't know if the speech therapist knew that my mother was British. I kind of got the idea that she didn't even know that my mother was British, because she wasn't the one that recommended that I do speech therapy. All she knew is that I couldn't pronounce my R's like an American. You know, the R sound, like in far, or forces, or bird, or here, there, everywhere. You know, the R sound. Well, it's very different in British English compared to American English. So every day I had to go in there, or every other day, and do these different exercises. And these are some of the exercises I would do. I would go like this. R, 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 r. R, 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 R. And I just really learnt to overemphasize these R sounds. And I tried my best to speak like an American, because that's what they were programming me to do. But I still got made fun of, because it wasn't easy for me to completely alter the way I learnt how to speak. I mean, how old was I? You know, kind of kindergarten age, first grade. So I had spent years of my life developing this accent, and to suddenly change it because everyone around me is saying it's wrong, except for my mother, was difficult. And I remember kids making fun of me a lot. Not just because I had an accent, but because I said words differently. Like I said the word settee. I remember once we got these new settees, couches in American English, and I was telling everyone at school about them because I was excited about getting a new couch for some reason. And they were making fun of me because they had no idea what I was talking about. And there were lots of different things like that, where I learnt the British way of saying things. And kids were cruel, because back then having an accent wasn't cool. In a small Idahoan town 38 years ago, people just thought, oh, it's a stupid kid that can't speak properly, so let's make fun of them. They didn't think, oh, this kid has a British accent, that's sexy. I mean, no one thought that back then, you know? They just thought I was stupid and couldn't speak properly, and the school apparently agreed with them and put me through speech therapy. So I remember the kids just making fun of me, and in kindergarten we had to get up in front of the class and we had to count. We had to count to 100 out loud in front of the class to prove that we could count to 100. And I could count to 100 fairly easily, but the problem there is I couldn't do it without the class laughing at me and making fun of me. And I remember getting up there, going 1, 2, 3, 4, and as soon as I got to 4, everyone would just laugh at me, because they thought, oh, this kid is stupid. They can't pronounce things properly. And that, combined with the speech therapy, just led me to be so self-conscious about the way I spoke that I just stopped talking to people. And people knew me as the quiet kid for years because I only ever spoke to people if I had to. And when I had to speak, because I had this accent, the only way I knew how to talk like an American was to mumble. Because when you mumble things, it just sounds more American, I guess. If you talk like you have food in your mouth, you end up sounding more American. So that's what I did. And with the speech therapy that I went through and with the mumbling, my mother couldn't understand me for years. She would constantly be telling me, speak properly, I can't understand you. You need to speak more slowly, you need to stop mumbling, you need to speak louder. But the whole reason why I couldn't speak properly anymore is because I went through this traumatic experience at school where everyone was making fun of me. So, the point that I'm trying to make here is that this criticism had such a huge impact on me that I had to completely alter the way that I spoke. I had to completely learn to use a new set of neural pathways to speak through. But I've always retained my accent. I just developed this other accent on top of it. And my accent has always been in my head. And when I've read out loud to myself or talked to myself or heard my own voice in my head, I've always had this accent. So it's not that I modified my neural pathways from one accent to the other. It's that I created this whole new structure of trying to speak like an American. It's something that for me, just every time I feel triggered or scared or in a scary situation, it's this defense mechanism that turns on and I start speaking like that. So the point I'm making here is that criticism can really alter the way our brain functions. It can literally create brain damage in someone's mind that we have to consciously work at healing. Anyway, so the reason why I'm going back to always speaking in my original accent is because I want to heal my brain. I want to teach myself, hey, the person you were then is okay. There was nothing wrong with the fact that you had an accent. There's nothing wrong with the fact I have an accent. And in order for me to overcome those defense mechanisms that I learnt then, I decided that I need to go back and accept those parts of me that people made fun of me for being, that are good things. And I think that this happens a lot to us, that there are good things about us that are unusual or strange to others, that people feel like criticizing. And I just want you to think back to those things. What are the things that are actually good things about you that people have criticized you for? And can you go back and accept those things about yourself in order to help yourself heal emotionally? So that's what I'm trying to do. And also, I think it's an important part of my heritage. I am a British American, and there's nothing wrong with speaking like a British American. So that is my hope. Also, my American accent, I learnt how to speak through mumbling all the time, and I really don't want to mumble anymore. I have tried so hard not to do that, but since I learned how to mumble to develop this accent, it's kind of part of it, and that's something I want to leave behind in the past. I don't want to be this mumbly person anymore. I want to speak clearly, and I want people to be able to understand me. But more than that, I want to feel good about my own voice, and I want to use my own voice. I don't want to use this voice that was brainwashed into my head anymore. So you'll notice in my videos from here on out, I'm going to be speaking in my original accent and just leaving the American accent behind, because that is not who I really am, and not who I was meant to be. It's who I was brainwashed into being, and I am just tired of being someone other than myself. Anyway, I just want to challenge you all to look back in your past of those times people have criticized you and how that has changed you. And think about how you can go back and change yourself to be the person that you would have been otherwise. Be who you genuinely are, and that's all I really have for today. And I hope that everyone can have a fabulous week.